Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen with you. Some exciting things to share today. So today I want to talk about the topic learn, unlearn, and relearn. Okay, learn, unlearn, and relearn. In his 1970 book Future Shock, Alvin Toffler wrote about too much change in too short a period of time. He said, the illiterate of the future are not those who can't read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Okay, cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Okay. 50 years later, the speed of change is exponential and unexpected. A leader is a learner because he wants to stay relevant in a world of accelerating change. If not, actually be an agent for change as an innovator, an early adopter. We have been using this term before. A bit of my reflection has been aided by the Learn Live team. It's a blog that I've been reading. Learning something, if you're actually interested in it, is pretty much always something enjoyable. That's why we learn to pick up courses. But it's not to be confused with learning with mastery. Okay, mastery, which can take a lifetime. Concept of 10,000 hours, that's a commitment. Unlearning, however, is something quite different. Okay? Unlearning is challenging. Unlearning requires deconstructing things that are embedded in your way of thinking, acting, and reacting. There are a lot of metaphors for unlearning. Okay? Chipping away at old paint before you put on a fresh coat, clearing away the vegetation before planting something new. They all point to the same thing. The previous ideas, beliefs, assumptions, etc., must be completely removed for the new one to flourish. They can't overlap. Just as one must eradicate all the old roots before planting, new flowers, new plants. In our business training, what we used to call 48-hour training for new distributors, we talk about going back to zero. In psychology, unlearning is letting go of unhelpful beliefs and negative behaviors. The neuroeducators might call it rewiring. Okay, it takes time to rewire, and sometimes we need to go several layers deep. Some beliefs and attitudes we wear lightly, and they are easily changed. Some things have become mantras, reinforced by everything we see and hear, by the spectacles that we wear. Chris Davey of the Harvard Graduate School of Education says, transformative change. Okay, so we're about transformation. Okay, transformative change is very challenging because participants not only must learn new skills, but also must unlearn almost unconscious beliefs, assumptions, practices, and values about the nature of learning. Habits, we're trying to build habits. Okay, that's what the scrolls talk about. Okay, so that it becomes automatic. Okay, so that's something that has become automatic. It's almost unconscious that we're doing. So it's very hard to unlearn. For those of us on the TR90 program, we grew up on the mantra of breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Suddenly we get confronted with intermittent fasting, which questions absolutely everything about the habits we have developed around eating. You can see some mental challenges there. And it doesn't stop there. We must learn, unlearn, and then relearn. Okay, it is a cycle. And that is so important in a world that is changing and developing at breakneck speed. So when things are moving fast, you need to pick up skills very, very fast. When you pick them up, then you need to be able to unlearn and relearn. So you see why you need to be a person who can question things, wear opinions lightly, be open to change, and be prepared to detach yourself from ideas and behaviors if they are no longer relevant. Or maybe we need to throw out behaviors because they just don't fit who we are at that point in our lives. Okay. Remember, we are moving on in relationships. People around us are also moving on. For example, those of us who are suddenly grandparents or going to be grandparents, what we do and who we need to be to look after our elderly parents, who, by the way, were brought up in the early 20th century. Okay, who we need to be to look after our elderly parents are completely different for the toddler growing up in the 21st century. Learn, unlearn, and relearn is a leadership principle simply because leaders are learners. Learning, unlearning, and relearning is uncomfortable. Imagine a repeated mastery journey. You get, the pain of getting to mastery, and you got to repeat it and repeat it. Very uncomfortable. Which is why leaders need to get out of their comfort zones. Okay, the out of your comfort zone is where the magic happens. Why leaders need to practice getting uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay? You've heard me say that many times, and this is the reason why, because it is uncomfortable to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Okay. So that's what, so that they can go back to zero. Okay. Now, Jackie Cheong is in Singapore for a series of 11 concerts. Okay. His concert director is an ACS boy, Goh Keng Long. And by the way, he admits he can't speak English, Mandarin very well. Somehow he gets by. But this is what he said about Jackie. Cheong also actively suggests improvements, occasionally coming to me to discuss changes. Okay, that's what Goh Keng Long says. Jackie came to me one morning wanting to share something with me, just like a little kid discovering a new toy. He said, I found a way to sing this song. I was shocked, amazed, and really impressed by how he, even after 60, 70, or 100 shows, still continued to think of new ways to improve his singing. Goh shared, pointing out that Cheong's intention was not to make life easy for himself, but to ensure that each concert maintained a good flow. Okay, an example of how, it's not about being uncomfortable. In fact, they want to stretch themselves all the time to get better and better, and they realize that it's a life of being uncomfortable. And again, this is a life example of discovering the best you. We talk so much about that, discovering the best you. Okay. Now, so going back to zero is so important. Okay. Now, remember this Motivational Monday where I shared about the older folk continuing to learn new things. This was talking about aging. And so here are HT, GP, and myself, in our late 60s and 70s, taking up stand-up paddling. Last Friday, I had opportunity to practice this cycle of learn, unlearn, and relearn, and it was at SUP. Like many lessons in life, it was unplanned, unexpected, and a gift to be grabbed. But let me give you a bit of a background. So I wasn't able to paddle midweek. Okay, Wednesday I couldn't. Thursday I had a medical checkup, so I wasn't able to do our usual paddling. So I decided that I needed to get a paddle. I wanted to get a paddle done. It was going to be on Friday, even though I was expecting to be alone. And then there was a forecast of thunderstorms. Okay. Soon after I got to Constant Wind, by the way, it was dry weather. Although it was raining on the way, according to the weather forecast, but when I got there, I prayed for God's power over weather. It was dry. As soon as I got there, our chief coach Tony Lee appeared. Okay, and then Hock Seng turned up. So there were three of us. We paddled to NEA Buoy in calm waters, and then went back to the canal to take refuge because you could see the dark clouds coming. Okay. Now I was followed very closely by Tony, who must have been observing my stroke and quietly laughing at how hard I was trying to stay ahead of him. When we got to the canal, I asked him to record my paddling. So I want to show the video of what he recorded. Okay. This is the front stroke. front view. And this is okay. So Tony is a coach certified by ASI. The ASI stands for the Academy of Surfing Instructors. And the ASI paddle stroke has 5 phases: entry, catch, power, stroke, power phase, the exit, and recovery. I was not doing what he had been trying to teach me from day one in basic a year and a half ago. Okay. And I think finally he couldn't hold it back anymore, and he pointed out what was not so effective and suggested some advice to help me improve my stroke. You can understand the chief coach's frustration. They were the same tips that he had taught at my basic course 1.5 years ago, had repeated to me many times before, but I just, obviously couldn't get it or ignored him. But this time I was more ready to unlearn and relearn. Tony has actually had little time with us in the past year because we are now paddling with a Thursday group, or we do ice up, with inflatables on our own, which reminds me of the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So literally, when I was really at the stage to improve my stroke, he appeared out of the blue. Okay. And you may say to me, hey, I look at you, your stroke is okay. But really, life is about discovering the best you in it. Okay, because that's what we want to do to inspire others. Okay, so relearning is not easy. Okay, I got out of the water actually much earlier at 9:30 instead of past 10 o'clock because I was using some very new muscles. Okay, and they were very, very sore as a result of that effort. But really, for me, it was an opportunity to practice going back to zero, correcting my stroke, become a more efficient and faster paddler. But more importantly, I'm practicing a life mindset or a life attitude and the skill of learning, unlearning, and relearning, something very, very important in this world of change. So that's my little sharing. Okay, I hope you find it useful.